should be all set to go.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Trustees meeting for the Village of Larchmont. Tonight is Monday, June 21st, 2021. Let the record show that the entire board is present. We also have with us this evening Village Treasurer Kimberly Gutwine, Village Attorney Jim Stout, and Village Deputy Clerk Brian Riley. We're going to say the pledge, but I do not have my handy flag photo ready to roll. So we're just going to have to fly this way. Everyone look at the flag nearest to you. I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wonderful. I have two announcements this evening, and the first is a sad one. And I want to take this opportunity to express condolences on behalf of the Village of Larchmont to Nancy Seligson, the supervisor of the town of Mamaroneck, on the passing of her father, Alan Seligson. Alan is survived by his wife, Edith, two children, Nancy and Kate, and 4 grandchildren. Alan and Edith also lost a child, Andrew, to cancer. And Alan then went on, and Edith went on to found the Andrew Seligson Lab for Cancer Research at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratories. And it annually supports a postdoctoral researcher who's helping to shape contemporary biomedical research and education with a focus on cancer, neuroscience, plant biology, and quantitative biology. He also served as president and trustee of the Nassau County Museum of Art, was a member of the United Nations Business Council, and served recently as an elected trustee in the village of Matinacock on Long Island. And I know that he's been a really important person in Nancy's life, and obviously has been very active in his community and the broader community. And I am sure that that's where Nancy gets her sense of service from. And our condolences go out to the family. The funeral was today, and there will be a memorial or a celebration of life gathering at a later date. Moving on, we have an appointment this evening to a reappointment of sorts, actually, to the Parks and Trees Committee. But I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Herman, and she can explain what I'm talking.
Thank you, Mayor. Tony Porter, who was a longtime member and actually co-chair of the Parks and Trees Committee, stepped off several months ago. Tony and I had a chance to talk recently, and she expressed interest in rejoining the committee in a different role, not co-chair. And I think it would be wonderful to have her institutional memory with the Parks and Trees Committee, as they are almost all to a person, except for Doris, actually brand new, and some new to the committee. So I would love to have her back in that role. I recommend that the board approve her appointment to the Parks and Trees Committee.
Very good. So we thank Tony, not only for her long service before, but for coming back. And I do think that her vast knowledge of the Parks and Trees firmament in the Village of Larchmont is going to be very helpful to all the new wonderful volunteers on the committee. I seek a motion to appoint Tony Porter to the Parks and Trees Committee for a regular term.
Yes, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Thank
right,
you.
great,
I'll let
thank
her
you.
know.
Now we're ready for the presentation of the Historic Preservation Task Force. I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Bauer to introduce briefly, and then we can bring on the presenter as soon as she changes her name now.
Thank you, Mayor. The Historical Preservation Task Force was formed, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago. During that same time period in which the board passed 17 new zoning laws, as you know, during the review of the zoning code, and determined that it really hadn't been updated since the 1960s and was missing some key things. One of those issues was historical protection. So the task force was formed to sort of explore what that would look like and how, you know, the village should go about that. And we are at the stage now where the historical survey has been completed and the task force is ready to present to the board and to the public the results of that survey. So now I'll turn it over to Maury.
Maury, Amanda Burse and Rick Lefevre are on. I think I should bring them in as panelists in case they want to have a little say at some point. So Sean, can you please bring in Amanda and Rick?
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Hi. All right. Thanks. Go ahead, Maury.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for inviting us to participate in your meeting tonight and to present to the community the Historic Resources Survey, which has been 4 years in the making, and one might argue 40 years in the making, but we'll get to that later. So what I'd like to do is share my screen, and I hope you can all see this
Yes.
image. Is that good? Everyone can see that?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So tonight we're presenting the survey itself. But before we dive into that, I really feel it's important to say a few words of gratitude. First, of course, to the mayor. Mayor Walsh has been a wonderful partner in all of this and this work and supporting the historic preservation efforts of our task force. And really all the Board of Trustees have been terrific. I'd like to especially thank Malcolm Fruman, who, though retired, he was our liaison from the Board of Trustees and a member of the task force. He's been wonderful. And also Sarah, who took his place, has been a wonderful addition to the task force. Besides the Board of Trustees, I really want to say a few words to Justin Dattino, who is our administrator, who's been a partner during the actual work of the historic preservation, the survey, which has been ongoing now for almost 2 years. We've also had wonderful support from the State Historic Preservation Office. They've been partners all along, and the Preservation League of New York State, which I'll mention a few words later. The Larchmont Historical Society has been a partner throughout this effort, and especially Susan Emery and Lynn Crowley, the archivist. And finally, the task force members have all worked very hard over the last 4 years to produce this document, which, as you will see, I think is going to really be an important foundational tool for us. So what I'd like to do next is just show you our presentation outline. I'll give some background, and I just want to make sure that we all know that there is time for questions, but I would ask that we save those for the end of the presentation. So let's dive right in. So the background. Sarah said a few words about that as an introduction. The community, our community, Larchmont, and really all of Westchester has been undergoing tremendous development pressures, and has led to demolition or threatened demolition of important residential and even commercial buildings in our village. And I think there's been a real move towards trying to stabilize the impressive and unusual nature of our community. And that was, I think, the basis for the activism and interest that was generated in the community itself. The other thing is 20 of our neighboring Westchester municipalities already are much more far along in their historic preservation efforts, with already having produced these surveys and have instituted historic preservation legislation. And the question is like, why not us? Why isn't Larchmont up to snuff with some of our neighbors like New Rochelle, Greenberg, and communities throughout the county and the state? And then the final point in a very quick background is that there has never actually been a comprehensive survey of Larchmont. And I mentioned something about it being 40 years in the making. What I meant by that was 40 years ago, there was a fledgling attempt to start an inventory, which I think only perhaps maybe inventoried about 60 properties, but never went beyond that. So this document, as I said, is 40 years in the making. And as you'll see, we now have a very comprehensive understanding of what actually we have in our beautiful community. A little bit more about the Historic Preservation Task Force, which, as Sarah was mentioning, was formed about 4 years ago. And in that time, we, the members of the task force, have been diving into the issues of historic preservation in the county and the state, and actually making contacts with other municipalities that are much further along in their historic preservation efforts. We've made contact with various agencies, again, the State Historic Preservation Office and the Preservation League of New York State. We have reached out to our fellow neighbors here in Larchmont, participating in the Larchmont Mamaroneck Summit, the community table at the farmers market, participating in Larchmont Day. We've also made presentations to several of the town or village organizations to explain what we're doing, and also to promote this idea of commissioning the historic survey. So about 2 years ago, after all of this work, and after having established a very good track record with the State Historic Preservation Office and the Preservation League of New York, we applied for a grant, and we were very, very happy to have been granted $10,000 to put towards the commissioning of this survey. And the village of Larchmont provided the rest of the funding. So after a rather vigorous search effort, we decided to hire Neil Larson and Associates, who has been in the business of, he's a professional architectural historian, and he's been in the business of conducting these surveys and helping communities with their historic preservation planning efforts. And in fact, he's done similar surveys for New Rochelle, Greenberg, New Paltz, and many of our of the municipalities in our immediate neighborhood, as it were. He has been a wonderful partner in this, very responsive, very interested, and has really helped us document what we have, but also to put it in perspective, to put it into context and really help us understand how to move forward, which I'll get to in a little bit. So the objectives of the survey, as I mentioned already, is to create this foundational document for the village to use in its planning efforts going forward. A thorough narrative, historical narrative of all the neighborhoods and all the subdivisions in the village of Larchmont, to document buildings, both commercial, residential, and also our institutional structures, as well as open spaces, and to identify those areas and individual properties which might very well be eligible for historic preservation and designation as significant or contributing structures. Also providing maps and photographic documentation, a moment in time. And as I said before, very importantly, providing recommendations for future planning. So let's dive into the report itself. So the report, I will get to this again later, exists in a hard copy and will also be available through the website as a digital copy. I'm going to do a very brief overview because the document itself is over 300 pages. And so what we've done is to choose a few of those pages which are representative of the overall document. So here we see a view we probably are familiar with, a historical view of Larchmont, and with April being the date and Larson Fisher Associates. So the document is a very professionally done document, and I am not including in my review pages and pages describing their methodology and how they went about making these investigations and how they made their decision about what is deemed designatable and what's not. It's a rather lengthy part of the report. So when you go to look at it, you'll find all that. But I think the really exciting thing, and graphically I think rather pleasing, is that the survey is a series of maps, narratives, photographs, and for each subdivision, and we have, I think, 19 of them, recommendations for each of these individual subdivisions. So this is the overall map, and this is how the report is organized. And it moves quickly into the individual subdivisions. Like I said, there's 19 of them. And for instance, Larchmont Manor, it has its own map, of course. And then there are many, many pages of narrative describing what the neighborhood consists of, how it developed, identifying any important personages that might be affiliated with the area, architects, historically significant people, and also providing photographic documentation. So there are a number of subdivisions sort of on the, the south, let's call it the south side of Boston Post Road, but the entire village has been studied. For instance, on the northern part of Boston Post Road, or I guess the western, for instance, the neighborhood of Forest Park is one of the subdivisions that was studied and documented with photographs. And as I mentioned, at the end of each section, there's an assessment of the significance of the building stock in the area, and whether or not the subdivision as itself might be eligible to be considered as a local historic district, and then individual properties of individual significance are also called out. Recommendations are also part of each of these chapters. So we have the residential subdivisions that have been included in the survey. And also we have commercial districts. Here's the village, and there are really three significant commercial districts that are called out and are presented in the survey report. Again, photographic documentation, an assessment of significance and eligibility, and also included our municipal buildings and institutional buildings such as religious buildings, educational buildings, and the like. So not only is the narrative part of the survey rather comprehensive, every property that was studied was also put into these property data matrices where the subdivision is called out, the address, etc. And then information, very fundamental information about the style of the house, the kind of architecture, the materials, and whether or not it's considered a contributing or non-contributing structure, meaning does it support the idea that the subdivision might be eventually designated as a local historic district. There are literally hundreds of pages of these things. I only included one just so you could get an idea of what this looks like. The other thing that's included is this pin map, which includes all of the buildings. You see these little pins that were surveyed. And the exciting thing is that if you pick on any one of these pins, a side panel will pop up. You see one here. This is for the public library. And it gives some basic information, including whether or not it's considered distinctive, and if there are any comments such as the architect or a historical figure that might be affiliated with the building. So that is very quickly going through a rather weighty document just to give everybody an orientation to how the document is organized and what the content of the document provides for us. So currently, this is how you too can look at the survey. I confirmed today that there is a hard copy of the survey, which is actually in 2 volumes, an 8.5 by 11 volume 1, which is the narrative with all of those photographs that I showed you, and then a second volume, which is an 11 by 17 format with all of those matrices and all of that individual documentation. Both of these volumes are available at the Larchmont Public Library. They're considered property of the reference department. And so you can ask for them at the information desk, and you can borrow them to look at the actual survey, but within the confines of the public library itself. This document is not going to be able to be checked out, but it's definitely going to be available for anyone who wants to look at it in the library, like other reference materials. And then very soon, the whole series of components, the narratives, the photos, the matrices, the maps with the pins, all of those will be available through the Village of Larchmont website. And so that will be another easy way for people to access the information. So as I mentioned, besides all of this just basic information, with Neil's expertise and experience in helping communities with their historic preservation planning efforts, he and his colleagues, several recommendations and findings were made. And actually these exist at the beginning of the report, you'll find that. So in one of the basic elements and a feature of these recommendations, but one of the basic elements in all of our neighboring municipalities that do take historic preservation seriously is they have a body, often called a Historic Preservation Commission, which then moves forward with all of the work that is done in the community to further document districts and individual properties to move towards designation and inclusion, either on the state or the National Register of Historic Places. And that commission would, also prepare documentation to propose the creation of up to 6 local historic districts. The other thing that is recommended, and many other municipalities have gone ahead and done this, is that the village-owned properties, if they have preservation potential or are deemed contributing, the village itself should move ahead with the buildings that they own and move forward to designation and inclusion on the state or national register. Another thing is to identify historic buildings that seem threatened or vulnerable. And in order to really take historic preservation's efforts seriously is the notion of adopting historic preservation legislation. And the State Historic Preservation Office is very helpful. There is a model law that they provide to anyone really who's interested in doing this. And it's a model law. It's a basic set of suggested legislation, which can be, which of course can be modified to and customized for the individual municipalities. And the wonderful thing about that also is those communities that do adopt historic preservation legislation in keeping with this model law are therefore eligible for funding for historic preservation efforts in the community. So moving forward, always moving forward, always looking forward to the next good thing to be doing. We at the Historic Preservation Task Force, and in discussion with the mayor, of course, and the Board of Trustees, we really advocate following through on these recommendations, studying the recommendations and following through on these recommendations in the survey. Soon, the task force will be presenting to the mayor and to the Board of Trustees an edited version of this model historic preservation law for their review, and to begin the process of really studying it and discussing it within the community and moving forward. And of course, we will continue our efforts for public outreach. This is a wonderful opportunity with LMC TV. Thank you so much for recording this today. And that is basically our presentation for tonight. I know I went through quickly. I know everybody's very busy, but I think the best thing to do is really go to the website, the Village of Larchmont website, find the link and take your time and look through. I think you'll find it really fascinating and very exciting. Or if you want, of course, as I said, the hard copy version is available at our beautiful library building. So as promised, we have time for questions and discussion, and I'd be happy to hear from anyone who would like to engage in discussion. And thank you again so much for your invitation to be here tonight, to the mayor and the Board of Trustees for giving us time in your agenda to make this presentation.
Great, thank you, Maury. I would recommend that you momentarily, at least, stop sharing your screen. It
I will
makes it
stop sharing.
perhaps easier for Q&A. I just want to start off by thanking you, Maury, for what I consider to be really stellar leadership of this task force from inception through where we are right now. I mean, you've really done a great job with it, and I thank all of the volunteers who have worked with you on this endeavor. The resource survey is an incredible treasure trove of information, whether you're just interested in your own particular house or street, or you just like to looky-loo. You go through it and you find out lots of interesting information. I think for me, like immediately, the most interesting part of it is that it provides context for all the different, little neighborhoods that we have in the village and how they came to be, and a little bit of their history. And I think that's it's valuable. It makes people feel a stronger connection to the spot that they live in. So it's even just for that, it's a really great document for the village to have. But I know that many people want to move beyond that and start looking at potential legislation, which the board will discuss with Sarah's help as liaison to the task force, the timing of that. And of course, that's going to include a lot of community discussion. And I'm, hopefully we'll be able to get the community energized and in a participatory mood for something that I think is, really interesting and potentially beneficial for all of us. I'm going to ask the board if they have any questions now. Fair notice is that the board has reviewed the resource survey with the task force once before. So we did ask some questions at that point, and we may not have additional ones at this time. And if there's anyone who is viewing the meeting on the Zoom link, you can raise your hand, and we'll call on you to ask a question or make a comment. So at this moment, I would say I'll also work with Trustee Bauer on getting the entire document up on the village website. I'm hopeful that it's not too large a data file for us to upload onto our antiquated and unfortunately soon to be defunct website. But we're gonna give it our best try in the next week or so at most. And Sarah will keep nudging me to remind me to get that done. So I open it up to any other commentary, questions, etc., that anyone wishes to make. I don't see any hands raised. Oh, we do have one.
Yeah.
Malcolm Fruman, you don't have to raise your hand. Just go ahead and talk.
That'll be a first. Of course, when Maury invited me to sit in on her presentation, I wouldn't have missed it. I just would like to say, having worked with Maury, what was it, about 4 years or so, the village is truly, truly indebted to Maury Cameron for her vision and her leadership and her stick-to-itiveness and ability to inspire all of us on the Historic Preservation Task Force to share the excitement over her vision. So whatever the outcome of this whole effort is, and I certainly hope it results in some sort of preservation ordinance to protect our beautiful village, we are all very, very indebted to Maury for all the hard work and leadership that she's demonstrated.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. And again, it's really been in a team effort. And the other thing, it's been, I would say, a democratic team effort. Some people might say it's been a lengthy process, but I think we were careful all the way along. And I think that care resulted in, first of all, our partners at the State Historic Preservation Office and the Preservation League of New York to really help us with the grant writing and providing support. So thank you for your kind words, Malcolm. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed working with everybody, and I'm just very happy that we finally have something to really show for it and can really move ahead in the nitty gritty. And this document will be that, as we were talking about, the foundational document, the information that will help us justify moving ahead and how to move ahead. So thank you.
Rick.
Yeah, thank you. Aside from the third shout out to our chairman for really yeoman work over a long period of time, one of the initial topics that we were discussing as a task force was what happens if someone says, what's the utility of this, or why would we be doing this? And I think this document very clearly shows that by golly, we have a very impressive building stock that is worthy of protection. And I think that really shines through in this document. And we all have, certainly the task force has a right to be proud of sort of nurturing this, but I think the community has a right to be proud of where we live. And this should really foster that pride.
Yeah, it's true, and it definitely bears repeating to those who weren't here at the formation of the task force that we were very deliberate and specific about needing to have a resource survey done, so that we did, as Maury just said, that this provides the basis upon which we can build the rationale for future legislation. And so I think it's great that we have this, and I think it's going to do exactly what we intended for it to do. Anyone else? I see no more hands raised, so I'm going to thank you all again for this wonderful and clear presentation, and for all your work, and we'll be moving to the next chapter shortly.
We will.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you, Malcolm.
Likewise.
Nice to see you, Malcolm, on a board meeting.
Yeah, very exciting.
It's like old times.
Just like.
Back in the
We
chair.
miss you. We miss you, Malcolm.
Thank you. I miss you too.
Thanks,
Nice
everybody.
job, Maureen.
Thank you, Maury.
All the
Thanks, Maury.
best.
I think I have one more. There we go. Good. Wonderful. Well, that was great. Now we're going to move on to item number 4, and we have a couple of public hearings on the docket. So the first is proposed local law. Hang on just a second and let me get my paper. Proposed local law providing that appointed Larchmont village officers may reside outside of the village. I just want to let everyone know that in the later part of the afternoon today, a slightly amended version of the law was placed on the agenda. It's not a substantive change, and therefore we will continue with the public hearing as scheduled. The change was that in 56-2A, the word appointed was inserted before the word village officers, and then a section B was inserted. Notwithstanding anything in subsection A to the contrary, only residents of the village of Larchmont shall be permitted to hold the office of village mayor, village trustee, or village justice. Certainly obvious, and nor would anyone ever attempt to appoint someone to those positions who was not a resident of the village, but it's worth making it clear in writing in this law. So that having been said, I'll ask if the board has any questions, and then I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. Okay, so then I seek a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And is there anyone who would like to comment or ask a question in attendance? Raise your hand if you would like to comment on this proposed local law. We have no hands raised, so I'm going to seek a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. And now I'm going to seek a motion to approve the local law providing that appointed Larchmont village officers may reside outside of the village.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. The next public hearing is a proposed law to amend Chapter 273 of Vehicles and Traffic, Penalties and Offenses. So basically, in this local law, we are changing the penalty for those who park during prohibited certain hours. This really refers to overnight parking primarily. So between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., there is no parking on village streets. And for most streets, except for some particularly accepted within the law, the fine had been $15 for a very long time. I don't know, decades. That penalty is going to be raised to $25 through this law. So I seek a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And now if there's anyone in attendance who would like to comment on the public law, please raise your hand. We have no hands raised, so I'm going to seek a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now I'll seek a motion to approve the proposed local law to amend chapter 273, vehicles and traffic penalties and offenses.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. Number 5, Police Chief, he is not with us this evening, so we're gonna move on to number 6, to Chief Caporelli, who I know has a scintillating report.
I do. Come on. Good evening, everyone. The newest firefighter to join the ranks of the career staff, James Shanahan, will be graduating from the Westchester County Career Fire Chiefs Academy on July 9th, 2021. After completing 18 weeks of intensive training, James will undergo another 4 weeks of in-house training here in Larchmont, where he will learn Larchmont's procedures, equipment, streets, and familiarize himself with the unique characteristics of Larchmont. We look forward to having James on board to serve the residents of Larchmont alongside his fellow firefighters. And Mayor, you and I discussed today, we have quite a bit of changes in the fire department over the last couple of years that we weren't able to recognize because of COVID. So hopefully when we have an in-person meeting, we'll be able to bring everybody forward and introduce all the new personnel to the board and the residents as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you remind me that I got ahead of myself in the announcement section, and we intend to move back to in-person board meetings in the month of July. And the details for that will be forthcoming soon, but we need to figure out a couple of logistical issues first. But I certainly expect that the July 19th board meeting will be in person. And so once we have that worked out, we may be able to schedule some or all of those new firefighters, new old firefighters at this point, for swearing in. It'll be a great way to start our in-person meetings again.
Yes, it will. Okay, Lieutenant Charles Bocher, one of our newest lieutenants, has been busy conducting fire prevention classes for the au pairs of Larchmont, the Larchmont Mamaroneck Girl Scouts, and as well as some small home pods of local children. If you'd like to have Lieutenant Bocher conduct a class for your group, please call 914-834-0016 and speak to Charlie, and he'll schedule a fire prevention class for your group. You may have seen photos of his classes on the Larchmont newsletter. I think you posted some of those, Mayor.
Yes.
All his classes, yeah. Fire safety inspections for businesses and multifamily dwellings continue to be conducted. Please prepare your business for your annual inspection by ensuring all fire suppression systems, fire alarms, including smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, fire extinguishers, and emergency contact information are all up to date and in good working order. To schedule your inspection, please call that same number, 914-834-0016, and speak to one of the on-duty staff. The volunteer staff will be participating in the annual Firemen's Parade in the village of Mamaroneck on June 30th, 2021. They will march with our apparatus behind the color guard of our own military veterans from the fire department. Firefighter Jordan Bogart, Firefighter Murnane, Firefighter Jones, and Firefighter Montemarano will be honoring the flag in the parade. And also volunteer ex-chief Don Keck will be participating. I believe it's his 51st, Bubba, Fireman's Parade.
Yes.
It is 51st. It might be 52nd for all we know. But please come out and honor his contribution to the department and to the village of Larchmont. Okay, switching to my role as code enforcement officer. Village Code 180, leaf blowers, has been in effect for some time now, and both the police and myself have been enforcing the code with good results, I think. Please remember the operator, the landscaper, and the homeowner are liable for escalating penalties under the new code. Leaf blowers of any kind are banned from the month of May to October 15th. And again, after January 1st, 2022, leaf blowers with an internal combustion engine or gas powered are banned entirely. We appreciate your cooperation. Village Code 241, solid waste, outlines the collection procedures for organic waste or yard debris. All yard debris, leaf bags, tree branches, etc., shall be placed out for collection the night before your second trash pickup. If you notice, I've been placing reminders on yard waste that's been placed out on the wrong day. It's a green round sticker, and I also placed a notice in your mailbox. I'll be issuing. This has been going on for about 2 weeks now, so I'll be issuing court appearance tickets to offenders starting next week. So please read and abide by the code and notify your landscapers not to leave your yard debris out for pickup before your scheduled day. Village Code 115, brush, grass, and weeds, outlines the responsibilities of homeowners for the maintenance of their respective properties with regards to the streets and sidewalks abutting their properties. Homeowners are required to restore the full width of travel on the public right-of-way. That would be either the street or the sidewalk for safe and unobstructed passage by pedestrians and vehicles. Now that the weather is warm, plantings have begun to grow. So please take a look around your yards and perform maintenance where necessary. And finally, all apparatus and equipment are in service and fully operational. And that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I hear you're going to be tearing apart a vehicle as a
Yes.
training.
Maybe tomorrow. There's one vehicle that the police have. I believe it's an old impound, and they're ready to dispose of it. So we're going to spend a little time and do a little training. We don't get many opportunities to do that. So the on-duty staff will be doing that probably in the back parking lot, as you suggested, Mayor. Tomorrow, I would hope, and get it done.
Okay.
But then we'll get it out of the way quickly.
So anyone who hears the noise will know.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that bad. It
Shouldn't be that bad. That's great. So they can practice with the jaws of life and saws and various. Okay.
Yeah, and then the new personnel will be here tomorrow, a few of them, so that's good for them to get some experience.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, number 7, a report from Attorney Jim Stout.
Nothing for this meeting, Mayor.
Very good. Number 8 is the treasurer, who has an item on for number 11, resolutions. So if it's okay with her, we'll wait until that point in the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor.
Trustee reports. I'll start with Trustee Bauer.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay, Trustee Brennan.
Nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. Trustee Herman.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
It's like a trifecta. But we know, but Trustee Finelli has something.
I'll make something up just to keep it interesting. So if you are interested in playing tennis, paddle tennis, pickleball, paddleball, go to the Village of Larchmont recreation at villageoflarchmont.org. Have a look. They're looking for people to play. Permits are out there. It's very easy to sign up. Great way to get some exercise. So we'd love to see you down at Flint Park enjoying yourself. The last few days, the last couple spots are left open at Flint Park Day Camp. So if anybody's interested still to join the camp, this is the time. Don't wait. Camp starts on July 5th, I believe, or is it the 6th? But it's right here. So if you want to do it, go to, again, contact Joyce Callahan at villageoflarchmont.org. On the 4th of July, it's being billed as a barbecue, but really, for those of us that know the 4th of July events, it's a hot dog handout. And it's a lot of fun. As of now, I believe there's 500 people signed up for this. So good times happening on the 4th of July in Constitution Park. There'll be a DJ, there'll be food, fun, friends, lots of just great memories are going to happen. It starts at 11 a.m. It's over at 1 p.m. If you're around, do not miss this village-friendly event. It's going to be the place to be. And I hear there's going to be watermelon. As long as I get it now. Concerts in the park. We are having concerts in the park for every Thursday for the month of July. That's going to be at Constitution Park. An eclectic array of music, from jazz to potential classical to some maybe country and some blues and good old rock and roll. It starts at 6 p.m. and it ends about 9:45 p.m. or so. Bring your favorite beverage, bring your blanket, bring your chair, bring your friends. This is a great way to spend the month of July and the first Thursday in August. Additionally, our favorite band, the Dixie Dandies, will be playing in Manor Park. That's closer to the Umbrella Point on the 4th of July, and that will be going on from 7 p.m. till dusk. If you love to hear the Dixie Dandies, kind of get in the mood for some good old American classic tunes, hang out, watch the boats go by, it's the place to be. Cool breezes. Check that out. And I think that's all I have to say at this time, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Sounds like a plan for the summer. We have next up is the administrator report. And He's not with us tonight. I'm just checking the attendees list here. So we have a couple of resolutions. Number 11, I'll start with the first one on the agenda, which is to approve the Mamaroneck Schools Foundation use of Flint Park for the junior triathlon this year. Last year it was a virtual event due to COVID, but it's going to be live on September 18th, 2021, which is, as has happened before, the same day as Larchmont Day, Big Truck Day.
Yes.
That's okay. An active day for Larchmont. So we have September 18th. The entire event is from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. The portion that takes place in Flint Park is just the running portion, and it's completely contained within the park on the asphalt paths. They will provide to us their insurance. They will coordinate. We will have let DPW and police department know, coordinate. They have asked for us to approve it, and also to, if possible, have the DPW close the road into Flint Park during the time at which the kids are running through the park, which is what we usually do. So I would seek a motion, unless there are any questions on this. It's pretty standard year to year.
No, it's nice that they brought it back because it was we were missing it last year. It's a great event for the kids, and it always gets a big showing.
Yeah, it's a really fun event.
Yes.
I'll just ask for a motion to approve the use of the Flint Park by the Mamaroneck Schools Foundation.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Next up on the agenda is to set a public hearing for a proposed local law opting out of licensing cannabis dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption establishments. So to explain to those of you out there who may not be aware, New York State has legalized the sale and consumption of, and growth and cultivation of cannabis. Municipalities have been presented with an option to either opt out or opt in of allowing retail sales of cannabis and on-site consumption establishments. Now, there are a lot of details that we're going to be putting out to the community to explain this a little bit further. But basically, we're presented with one opportunity to opt out, and that's through a local law. And there's a deadline by which that law has to be adopted by the village. If we adopt an opt-out law, we can, at a later date, should the board and or the community choose to, rescind the law and opt back in. But if we don't opt out now, we will be default in and we'll never have the opportunity to opt out. So this board has made the decision to opt out now so that we can continue to gather additional information about what this may mean to us personally here in Larchmont. And the reason we don't yet know that is in the legislation which legalized cannabis cultivation, sales, and use, it calls for the creation of a cannabis control board, similar to the New York State Liquor Authority, which is going to be setting up lots of rules and regulations as to the licensing of establishments. That board has not yet been created, and therefore those rules and regulations for licensing have not yet been created. Additionally, we have some follow-up questions on how the cannabis sales tax would flow through to the village should we allow retail sales. It seems at this moment that perhaps a portion of the sales tax that would come to the village may actually flow and stop at the town. We want to have the ability to do a very good analysis of what kind of additional sales tax revenue we're talking about here. before we make any further decision. And the final item is that the projection is that retail sales in the state of New York won't be active for probably 18 to 24 months. So there's no great rush for us to, oops. Sorry. There's no great rush for us to really make a binding decision to stay in or opt in, which is the default. We can opt out, we can gather more information, we can see how things are going, and then we can revisit this and discuss whether or not we want to rescind the law and opt back in. So that's it in a nutshell. We will put out a little bit more information prior to the public hearing so that it's clear to everyone what it is that we're doing and why we're making the decision that we're making. So if you give me just a moment to pull up my, I seek a motion to set a public hearing on a proposed local law to amend the code of the Village of Larchmont by adding a new chapter 133 called Opting Out of the Licensing and Establishing of Retail Cannabis Dispensaries and On-Site Consumption Establishments within the Village of Larchmont. And that public hearing would be scheduled for Monday, July 19th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Do I have, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And finally, we are up to the resolution to authorize the administrator to enter into agreement with PKF O'Connor Davies, and I'll turn it over to Trustee Gutwine. Treasurer Gutwine, sorry.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. I'm asking you to pass the resolution to approve the hiring of auditors to provide professional audit services for fiscal year 21, which runs from June 1st, 2020 to May 31st, 2021. The village issued an RFP for these services and received interest from 3 possible firms. Of those, only one firm, PKF O'Connor Davies, submitted a proposal for the current year. I compared the proposal to the requirements which were included in the RFP and found the proposal to be satisfactory. I'm asking you to approve the hiring of PKF O'Connor Davies for a term of 1 year at $41,700. The proposal includes an option to renew for a 2nd year at the same price. Are there any questions?
The only question I have is that we are going to include within that help me out, Trustee Herman, the attestation of the trustees regarding
Conflicts and
of
that they
interest.
have read our regulatory code of ethics.
Okay.
Okay, great. So with that amendment to that, I seek a motion to approve the resolution to authorize the administrator to enter into the agreement for a 1 year. For 1 year.
Is that it?
1 year, yes.
That's it. Sorry, I know. I left it hanging in the middle of a phrase.
Then in that case, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last item on the resolution section, we're going to table for another meeting. We needed to make some edits to the language of that resolution. So now we are down to resolutions set at a previous work session, just to let everyone know what we did at the work session if you didn't join us on Zoom to watch. We set the public hearing that we just had for the local public law regarding public officers. And we set the public hearing for the local law that you just heard on the amendments to Chapter 273. And now it's time to hear those persons who wish to address the board. So if there is anyone who is in the attendee space and wishes to, okay, so Sean, anyone who raises their hand, please put them through.
First, we have Michael Godfrey.
Okay.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. I heard at a prior work session that the tiered billing discussion is going to continue next month or soon thereafter, and so I will I will wait until then to ask some questions that I had about the discussion around the water rate increase. I would like to ask a few questions, if I may, about the progress on the sanitation restructuring. But before I do that, I do want to thank you all. I was able to watch the joint meeting last month from down south, and I was thoroughly impressed with the preparation of the board. It was a stark contrast in preparation that you could see on both sides of the issue, and so I want to thank you for representing our interests as well as you did, and as thoroughly as you did. There's clearly an imbalance of information on our side in terms of the history and what it actually means to residents, and so it's good to know that we are so well represented. But what I didn't get from that meeting was what do you have scheduled between now and the end of the year with respect to meetings and discussions and going forward in terms of coming up with a resolution?
We don't have anything scheduled just yet. We left it that we were going to be preparing some financial analysis. And I have tasked one of our finance committee members with doing that. When he has completed that, we'll probably pull a work session together, and then we'll move to schedule something with the town.
Okay, well, are there any benchmarks that you have that you'll use to measure progress towards the next iteration of sanitation, excuse me?
Benchmarks for progress to the point at which we call another meeting, or benchmarks for where sanitation will land, or what our goal is?
The latter question.
The latter question?
Yeah.
I would say that's still very much an open issue, as probably evidenced by the conversation that was had at that joint meeting.
Okay. When are residents going to have an opportunity to actually ask a series of questions in the context of a sanitation discussion? Because they're always held in work sessions, and as you know, we aren't generally afforded the opportunity to ask questions real time.
We will, at the point at which we get closer to a point of decision making, of course, hold public meetings.
Okay. In the meantime, are we going to be is the commission going to be counting the tonnages of all of the materials that are being processed? For example, the plastics and the organics.
Those, most of the materials are weighed, but not the commingled. The process is not in place to weigh those, because they don't go like the trash and the paper to the same place. So, but that, we are close to a point, Michael, that we will need to make arrangements, at least for the next budgetary year. I believe that we may not have a resolution to the current situation. in time for it to be implemented for the next budget year. So that's going to be part of the conversation in terms of what gets counted. But I'm hoping that we can avoid using tonnage at all in any scenario going forward.
I agree with you, Mayor, 100%, as you know.
Yes.
But it takes two to dance at a tango party.
Yes, it does.
And from what I heard, excuse me, was that, as I said, there is an imbalance of information. It is my humble and respectful opinion that if you count the tonnages, they're going to see that your proposal was eminently fair and as gracious as you always are, Mayor. But sometimes they've got to be educated, and whereas I have to disagree with you, Mayor, excuse me, but the recyclables are actually listed in the Westchester County bill in a separate category. And if we can get access to the data from the download from Westchester County.
The organics are listed and the paper is listed. The commingles are not.
Okay, I will go back and look at it. I had it the exact opposite, but in either
And
case.
I could also have it the exact opposite. It could be that the
respect
commingles are on, but the paper's not, but one of the recyclables is not in there. So we have an almost complete data set.
Right, and if anyone needs to do an analysis on that, it can be downloaded and sorted.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
and
it can.
the last question I have is, would you ever consider appointing a secretary treasurer to the commission? Right now, the position has been open for a while, and I know that Trustee Herman has in the past indicated that the village should have more I don't know the word she used. It was a lot more brilliant than I can say, but more presence at the table, and the law allows for that. And I might suggest that you consider appointing a secretary treasurer. It doesn't have to be a working person. It could be a member of the board. It can be a volunteer. It could be anybody. My reading of the law, and I think it would be helpful. But with that, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be heard. As always, I want to wish you all a happy 4th of July, and thank you so much for your service. It's tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. If there's anyone else who wishes to address the board, raise your hand, please. And seeing no other hands, we're going to move on to item 13, which is approve the minutes of meetings. So we have a board meeting from May 17th. And I'm going to ask someone to, I ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the May 17th meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And next up, we have the minutes of the work session held on June 7th. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And finally, we're at the 14, approval of bills. I will turn this over to Trustee Herman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have reviewed the bills, the invoices associated with the check register for bill list dated June 16th, 2021. They appear to be in order, and I move that the board resolve to pay all of the invoices listed therein in the amount of $529,559.83. Do I have a second? Jump
Second.
right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. You
Great.
guys are
You know,
very
we've gotta keep the
hesitant to
lights
pay our
on.
bills. Gosh.
Very good. That's it. Thank you very much. I
Thank
seek a
you.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Good night. Sean, thank you very much.
Happy 4th,
Thank
you.
everyone.
Happy
Sean.
4th. Good night,
Happy
everybody.